Anyway, what an amazing bunch of faces that are looking at me right now, and hello to whoever's online. I'd wave at a camera if I knew where it was. I'm going to talk about the pathway to transformative change. I'm delighted to be here on the platform. I've been here quite a number of times over the 25 years I've been coming to the conference. Amazing to see so many faces that I know. But transformative change, I'm going to go fast, so buckle yourselves in. The research evidence for what I'm going to talk about had the real luck this year last year of getting a contract with Natural England on governance and justice in landscape management. Why am I here talking to a marine conference? Because most of that applies in the marine environment too. Also just finished, just in the closing stages of reviewing what was done around participation in marine spatial planning in all the EU countries that undertook it. In total, about 80 different cases and examples analysed, and I would say most of them were not great practice and were not using evidence base for the way you do decision-making and participation. I'm also part of some international research teams, one looking at power in participation, and another one, curiously, looking at the voice of nature in participation, some mind-bending stuff there. But I've also got about 27 years of trying to put all this stuff in practice in the real world, at multiple different scales, local to global, across different kind of cultures and contexts, 28, 30 countries so far, and very different habitats and places and topics as well. To give you a flavour of marine and fisheries examples, done work for OSPAR, ACOBAMS, that's the cetaceans in the Med and the Black Sea, JEDA, which is a bit like OSPAR for the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden, and then EU Ocean Energy and EU Marine Spatial Planning at the moment. So that's all international stuff. Various national things, Rememory, which was a great workshop that I did about 18 months ago. Co-management of fisheries, these other things, and then regional MPAs, MCZs, coastal change, and adaptation infrastructure. But I'm here to talk about transformative change, so what do I mean? This language is just everywhere now, but what do we actually mean by it? So I've drawn from multiple definitions and come up with this. It's a fundamental change in the way we do things. It's got to be positive system level change. We are out of time for incremental change, totally out of time. I think we all know that. We don't really know quite how to change things, though. So that's going to take shifts in paradigms, goals, values, ways we do things, ways we've always done things. That's got to change. And my particular interest is how do we transform the way we collaborate? How do we transform the way we make decisions? So I'm going to wrap this next slide. It's got to be all this lot. It's got to be integrative, adaptive, multiple perspectives, inclusive, just, smart, imaginative, collaborative, multi-actor, enable social learning, win-win ethos, and follow principles of procedural justice, which I will have a slide on in a minute so you know what I'm talking about. And first of all, I'm going to talk about sharing power. And for that, I'm going to tell you a little story, because stories speak better than facts and figures. So Summit to Sea, some of you might know of it. It was a very ambitious rewilding project that pitched up in the middle of Wales. The environmentalists were well funded. They were making decisions in advance on the area that would be considered, the kind of vision they wanted to see happen there. That was their area, their vision. They did lots of great engagement, lots of great consultation, used some innovative methods to collect lots of data and opinions. But they got massive pushback. And the farmers feared collapse, quite justifiably, if you understood some of what they were talking about in detail, of their way of life and taking sheep farming below a tipping point that collapsed both the sector and their culture, which was sheep-based. And the project collapsed. And fundamentally, that was a story of power over, because a group of environmentalists had gone in with their ambitions, their ideas about who to involve and how to involve them, and then had got the pushback from the people who lived and worked in that area. Shift forward a little bit, the project completely collapsed, and then Tir Cannol, Middle Ground, great name, started up. And they had 2 years of co-designing, designing with, not for. Sheep farmers were really heavily involved. They had this ethos together, all of them, humility, listening, learning together. And no fixed goals. What works will emerge from the process of experimentation and learning together. What a difference. And it is making a profound difference. It's the only story I know, having worked for 27 years, of this shift from power over to power with in the same place, and it's transformative. Benefits of sharing power and decision-making also are really crucial to understand because the benefits claimed for involving others through what I would call light touch engagement, so that's surveys, drop-in meetings, one-to-one at the harbour, all that kind of thing where you're collecting lots of qualitative data but feeding it to 8 to 10 environmentalists or planners or whatever they are to make the decisions, is not going to get us where we want to get to. It's about legitimate representation in those decision spaces and power shared. It's about the quality of the decision-making process. This comes from research. This isn't just me saying it because it's what I do. And if you get it right, you get ambition, agreement, and stringency in what has come out, which is going to lead to better outcomes. So the benefits of deliberative participation, not lightweight engagement, are what we need if we want to have all these things that people, the top line, that people claim is what comes out of engagement. It doesn't. It's about power. We've got to understand power is part of all of this. And if you get that right, you get the social capital, which is the glue to act collaboratively. You get the knowledge shared from multiple perspectives. You get decisions that are better informed. You get integrated solutions, which we vitally need. And you get commitment to action. But please note, that's about power again. Because this is about a place-based session, there's so much psychology I could bring to this, but I want to bring you this. We've got to reduce the risk of causing social and psychological shock and trauma. And we do this when we go into places and impose change. Because our sense of who we are as individuals, we have a connection to place, it's part of our identity. It's part of how you feel. If you're able to live, I know many, many young people having to move all the time. But if you have the privilege of living in a single place for any length of time, that starts to become how you feel about yourself and how your family feels. And then there's a threat to that of change. It may be a positive change, but it's still a change. And that starts to feel like an assault on yourself. And solastalgia is this extraordinary word, emotional or existential distress, pain, suffering and grief caused by change to your environment. And we keep going in, I say environmentalists or others, go in and bring about change in places, and this is what we're triggering. We're triggering a trauma without realizing it. Another benefit of doing things in a participatory, multi-stakeholder way, you get multiple knowledges and get a holistic view. So you can avoid those risks of narrow and linear thinking. You work on solutions, you can see more of the wider system, avoid those negative and unintended results, and avoid the short-term benefit at long-term cost, and avoid what this Indian fable of the elephant and understanding different bits of the elephant and thinking you know it all when you don't. We avoid that. It also enables systems thinking. So that's a focus on the system, not the parts. I know there's going to be a presentation shortly a bit more about this. You can do this with rich pictures. That picture there is people from senior policymakers and scientists from sub-Saharan Africa, about 60 people, beginning to play around with the systems for transboundary river basin management going down into rivers. So look at how the system behaves and functions and look for those causal links, the vicious, virtuous, stabilizing and stagnating processes that are going on. But the legitimacy paradox. So participants, bit of research, bit shocking. Participatory governance up, legitimacy and trust in the governance down. What's going on? That's not what we think should be happening. And how does it fit with research back from 2008 that says that people can accept outcomes that are not their first preference if they think the process has been legitimate? And there's the clue, legitimate process. And that comes to this new phrase that you're going to start hearing. This is landed in COP16, procedural justice. And I heard today there's some new research starting in Scotland on it. So that's about transparent and just decision-making, representation in the decision group. We reckon 45 to 60 people is about the number that can work together, bringing different knowledges, balanced inclusion, unbiased neutral design and facilitation, process of deliberative and principled negotiation, and going through a process where you're hitting all the decision points together. So you're sharing knowledge and understanding, you're agreeing priorities, resolving differences, co-producing ideas, agreeing the ongoing governance, and implementing change. On the right-hand side of this slide is the conditions in which you are more likely to get beneficial outcomes, and you'll see again a design process, sharing power, systematic representation, many of the things that I've already said, all coming together in one bit of research about what will get you there. Another new word, regenerative governance. This is landing, meaning to land too. And this is where governance changes its whole ethos. It's not about status and control and directing and pulling all the strings of what's going to happen. It's a completely different ethos. It's one of service, of stewardship, of enablement. Again, a wide range of people in the governance, not just 8 to 10 environmentalists, maybe with a fisher or a farmer or some token other person involved. But where's the youth voice? Where's the business voice? Where's the tourism? Where's the community? So a wide range of perspectives, long-term thinking, sharing power, coordinate and mobilise, and deliver power and resources and reflect on what you're doing. Co-production, I'm just like 10 seconds. Co-production, co-design, co-create, co-delivery, co-benefit. Don't use that language unless you're doing it. It's about sharing power again at all the stages of decision-making and enjoying the benefits. And if you want to know more, take a picture of that, because we're doing all sorts of things about making sure that we get better practice, AI and participation, all sorts of good things. Take a picture of that. If you're interested, tick on it. Sorry, I went over by